Good morning or evening if you are somewhere in the evening. My name is Sammy. I have started a YouTube channel to just express myself and talk about spiritual stuff. And I would like to bring people on my journey with me because I know that I'm doing a lot in this lifetime and I want to kind of create a community of people who have followed me and who come along with me on my journey. So I haven't thought of a name yet, but I'm thinking like maybe like Catalyst Collective because I like the word catalyst and what it stands for, and I look at myself like that for people in other people's lives. So maybe Catalyst Collective. Who knows? We'll find out. So for now, I'm just sharing my spiritual stuff and whatever else I feel inclined or inspired to share. So what was interesting was last night, this morning, I had a very like lucid dream about. I was at a festival and it was a download, but it was like a vision of just an aura and an angel, and this angel is showing me my aura, and is showing me that this applies to everyone. So it wasn't so much as a vision as it was like a just a knowing or an impression. But basically, what my this angel was showing me was that that the distortions and the the distortions and the delusions that we hold within ourselves, that we pick up through being conditioned in humanity. Um, these conditions, like these distortions and delusions that we all hold mentally and like emotionally and behaviorally, creates like big rips in our energy, and it basically like distorts our actual energy field so that we're not whole, like we're not expressing as like the divine beings that we are, like we're not balanced. They kept saying the word imbalances. It wasn't so much like this is a real big delusion, it's more of like you're not delusional, but like we all have imbalances, and especially like cognitive distortion. So that means thinking like thought patterns that aren't like good for us, like false thought patterns, like thought patterns that are unhealthy. And then delusions mean so distortions are thought patterns, and delusions are false beliefs. That's right. I looked it up last night. So yeah, delusions are false beliefs. So these delusions and distortions that we all have as part of the human conditioning, that everyone is under, not just, everyone that's born on planet Earth kind of picks it up one way or another. From the way that others behave, we're pack animals, we're tribal creatures, so we pick up and we learn from each other. And if we have parents that have lots of distortions and lots of cognitive delusions, and they believe things that are not correct or not true, we'll pick up on those as well, especially light workers and star seeds, because we're so empathic. Like that is a recipe for copying our parents to try and get the love that we need, because we're probably used to more love than we get on this planet, if that makes sense. Like our souls are conditioned to like know more than that, so we kind of are more sensitive to not receiving love. And for me personally, that was the case. My mum had a lot of distortions, like a lot of like cognitive distortions, like emotional reasoning, for example, like thinking through emotions and making choices out of emotions, as well as thinking you're always right, and believing you can read someone's mind and things like that. So there's a lot of like different ones, but they were some cognitive distortion examples. I think I'll talk more about these. I'll make some more videos about cognitive distortions and explain them all, because there's so many that I didn't even know were not right. Like they weren't supposed to be there. Like a distortion, it kind of implies like it's not correct or it's not in alignment. So anyway, yeah, so if you pick up stuff from people. You pick up, especially from your parents, especially when you're an empath, and especially when you don't get the love that you need, which is a lot of light workers, because we need to be initiated into this life. We usually have difficult lives, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we do pick up a lot of shit that we then have to like clear out over time. And it's kind of frustrating, like I'm not going to lie. Like I've been aware of some of my cognitive distortions, and and you know, it's been months has gone by and I've still been functioning out of them, you know. And it's not like you can just get rid of them like that. It's a process, you know. And I am 22, so I've got heaps of time, but still, like the longer that you believe them, the stronger that they get. So the more work that has to be done to like release them, I guess. Anyway, so this is what the angels told me. This is what happened to me in my dream. And when I woke up, I just wrote down everything. Everything. So, angels and help me see this. So the revelation was identifying with unconscious imbalances within aura, attaches them to and makes okay. Sorry. This is my writing when I'm like half asleep is really hard to read. So I'm just going to start again. Okay. The revelation is identifying with unconscious imbalances within the aura attaches them to you, and it makes you more vulnerable as well, makes you less strong, really. And it and it makes your perception distorted. So it distorts your perception, meaning that the way that you perceive the world and the way that you understand and interpret the world is distorted and not true, like not really how things are, which is can be, as you can imagine, pretty damaging. Like for me, for example, I have this distortion where I think that every guy is wants me. I think every single guy wants me, and I don't know how much of that is true. I don't think every guy that looks at me wants me. I just think like like I'm magnetic. I attract a lot of attention anyway. But I have this belief, like this false delusion. It's not a distortion. It's a delusion that I attract, like that every guy that is looks at me wants me. Every guy wants me, you know. And so I have this issue with like trusting men, because I think that they always have like the worst intentions, and a lot of the time they, you know, I'm right, but like it's still a distortion. It's still a delusion. Sorry, because um I go around, I look around, and it kind of it fucks with my vision. It makes me like assume the worst out of everyone, especially my male friends. I really struggle with having male friendships because like I don't trust them, and I don't trust their intentions. And so that's an example of a delusion that like distorts your perception of the world. And recently, actually, a friend of mine, I have a very close male friend, and I love him to bits. Like we have a great time, and there's no funniness. Like we pay for ourselves. Like it's not like he's not like paying for me, or like it's nothing like that. It's just like we're very equally friends, and it's pretty safe. You know, it's pretty like I feel comfortable with that. But the other day, I just had this feeling like I seen him, like he sent me like an X on like a on one of my messages, his messages to me, and I just like that just triggered me. Like I was like, oh my god, like he's not he likes me more than a friend. Like he wants me. Like he's hiding it. Like, you know, all of this stuff started coming out, and that's the distortion there. So that the distortion is the negative thought patterns. So like I started thinking like shit, like he doesn't like me like a friend. He wants more. Like we can't keep hanging out. Like he's just gonna keep falling in love with me. Like there's just this belief that like every guy is gonna fall in love with me, and like it has happened a lot, but it's not every time. And in this case, I actually spoke to him about this because it was like really like making me anxious, because like I don't want to lose this friend, but I can't spend time with him anymore, and it's making me so uncomfortable because like I think that he likes me. So anyway, I spoke to him because I was like, I don't know if this is real or not, because then I started feeling really uncomfortable around him. This was while we were still hanging out as well, and afterwards. But then when I went home, I was like so uncomfortable. And then I waited until the next day and I was like, okay, like I need to talk to you about this. And I told him what was going on in my head and what I was feeling. And he called me straight away. Well, he called me when he was like free, and we spoke about it like straight away because I messaged him because I didn't want to like bring it up in person or like just say it out loud because I was just like, oh god, yeah, conflict. I don't know, weird. But anyway, so he basically called me and said like, hey, like, thank you for like sharing this with me, thank you for telling me, but no, I don't have feelings like this for you. I don't have any romantic feelings for you, I promise. Like, I like having you as a friend, like that's it. I don't see you like that. And I was like, oh, okay, all right then. And he was like, he even said, oh, we've even spoken about like when I was in love with a friend of mine and I told her like straight away, like I told her. So like, let's just make a pact now that if any feelings come up, that we'll just talk to each other about it. We'll keep an open space and, um, and like, thank you for resetting your boundaries because maybe that's what you needed to do. And I was just like, what? I was like, oh my God, like this is like so not what I was expecting. Like, I just thought he was hiding it and like, and it was like, I was so not right, like about any of that. And I totally believed it. My delusion was like totally like convinced me that this was what was happening. And it was so not the case at all. So that's just an example of a distortion and how it can like really make you vulnerable to like the not truth, to being misled and to misperceiving situations and misunderstanding people. And like, it fucks with your vision, it fucks with how you see the world and people. I can see it in myself as well. Another distortion or a delusion, sorry, another delusion is fear. It's a big delusion, but it's one of the biggest ones that I think it is the biggest delusion that the human race struggles with or deals with at this time. Delusions are, yeah, false beliefs. I just have to keep reminding myself of this, like the difference. This is something new that I'm learning. So, yeah, fear is a big one. So, fear, like the delusion will give rise to the cognitive distortion. So, the fear will give rise to negative thought patterns that are like toxic or bad for you in terms of like the way you're seeing the world. Then you're starting to misperceive the world. You're starting to come to conclusions about the world that aren't true or about people that aren't true. Like, you're seeing the world in a very messed up way that is so not real. Like, it's not real. That's not reality, And that's the really big message here, that it's not reality. Like, these distortions that we hold, they're not true. They may feel true because they've been given so much energy and like attention for all these years, and you've probably unconsciously validated them over and over and over and over and over again. And certain times where it's not even your control, like you've had to validate, or they validated themselves by coming true. Sometimes you manifest them to coming true, and then that just further like validates them and makes them bigger and feeds them more. That makes sense? So it's not really about like destroying them or anything. It's just about becoming aware that that's not how things are, even if it does feel that way. And I know that seems a bit counterproductive because in the spiritual community, it's like, oh, I feel this, so it must be true. But it's not always the case. Like, yes, intuition and gut feelings are very, pretty reliable. But you've always got to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, that's what I realized. Like, I had a gut feeling that my friend liked me. But my gut feeling was created through the cognitive distortions, through the thought patterns that I just explained to you. So it wasn't my gut feeling like intuitively, it was a mind created thing. And so all we have to do is not blame ourselves for one, just accept that this is part of the human condition right now. It's part of the script that we're kind of born into and that we get taught from a very young age, so it's nobody's fault. But the only thing we need to really do is become aware of these things. We only need to become aware of what kind of which distortions are running us and what delusions we're holding within ourselves, these false beliefs that are disempowering us and making us see the world in a negative way, in a way that's not true. Because like, you know, there's one belief that I just came to mind, and it could be for a lot of you as well, that I've struggled with for years, is the belief that death is bad, that death is cruel. So that has led to so many cognitive distortions around animals, and like believing that it's wrong to like kill animals for food and stuff, like believing that it's wrong to like use animals and stuff. And like, yeah, it feels wrong. It feels wrong because that's not what we would do if we had the choice, because we're compassionate beings. But in this life, in this world, that's the reality. There's life and there's death. You know, we've got polarities. We've got the light and we've got the dark. Like we can't say which is right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. That in itself is a delusion. The fact that there is right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. It's all up to the perceiver to make a choice on what they feel is right and wrong. Like, yeah, you can think that killing animals is wrong, but it's if you look at it from a higher perspective, from like a God perspective, it's not wrong. It's just different. You know, it's just it's an expression or a belief system of other people that's creating that. Or, you know, it's just humanity expressing itself at the level of evolution that we're at right now. You know, maybe in the future we won't kill animals. Maybe in the future we'll find other ways to get protein and, you know, to whatever else we use animals for. Like, that is part of our evolutionary process. But right now, killing animals for food isn't wrong. It's just the way that humanity is expressing right now. Does that make sense? So I have lived with this distortion for so long, and it's created so much suffering, and I've tried to fight it. I've tried to, you know, I've tried to convert people, like I've tried to change it. And I'm like, what, like, this is so much bigger than me, and it caused me nightmares. And even recently I've even had nightmares about like slaughterhouses and stuff. Like, it fucks with me. It really does. What it did. But now I'm realizing, like, this, I can let this go, because this isn't a distortion. Like, this is a distortion. Like, it's not wrong, and I don't need to stop it from happening, because it will stop on its own. It's part of the process. And who's to come onto this earth and say, like, it's, you know, this is controversial, but who's to come onto this planet and say, like, this is wrong, this is right, you know, like, I get it, but like, I get why people do it and why people are activists and stuff, but it's just like, unless you're here to devote your life to that, like, it's not worth worrying about. It's not worth getting upset over. Like, that's just how it is. Obviously, if you see like an animal get killed or something, like, you're allowed to feel something, you know, it's still sad, but death isn't bad. Death isn't evil. Death isn't scary, because like, it's part of life. Like, it's like you can't just have life without death. Like, they're both the same, and it's like ending of cycles. Like, death is represents so much more than just like violence, you know. Like, it doesn't always have to be violent. It doesn't always have to be bad, you know. So that's just another distortion that I have held on to, or a delusion, sorry, that I've held on to, that has created so many distortions, almost even to the point where like I see nature suffering when it's not suffering. You know, like, I'll look for suffering and I'll see it everywhere. But when I look for beauty in nature, I see beauty, you know? Like, it's all about what you're expecting, what you're believing, and that's what you're seeing, you know? If you think that there's not enough, like, for example, like, I feel like there's too many fishes, like, this is a distortion that I have. I don't know if this is true or not, but this perception that I have, that, or thought pattern, which is a cognitive distortion, that there are too many fishes and not enough fish, and there's not enough fish for the animals. So like, I've got this belief, like, you know, the sharks are coming close to the beaches because there's not enough fish, or, you know, the birds are starving because there's no fish. Like, you know, like, I've got these like beliefs, and so when I'm at the beach, I feel so guilty towards the seagulls, and I start to like, I see them suffering, I see them like starving. That's how I perceive them, because of this belief that I have. And then I see, you know, I see birds around the beach and looking for food and stuff, and I just feel so sad because I'm like, they're starving, and like that's not actually true. And like, is that even something I should be like worrying about? Like, does that really make any difference, like, at all? Do you see what I mean? Like, it's kind of just like, it just creates so much unnecessary suffering and pain for me. Like, I feel the pain. Like, I don't think these animals are worried about the fishes, like, I think that, or the fishermen, like, I feel like they're just, they're just getting by every day, living in the moment, and like, I'm just over here like worrying about the whole world. Like, how is that helpful? That's not helpful to anyone or me. Anyway, I'm gonna move on to the rest of the writing that I got. So, because it was kind of pretty simple, but it like made a lot of sense, and yeah. Yeah, so the distortions and the delusions create energy, like fragmentation in your auric field. So it creates holes in your energy, and kind of compromises your energy, which is interesting because that means that you're more vulnerable and less strong, And that's why it's in our best interest to kind of see these distortions and see these delusions, and just seeing them alone and realizing that they're not true and they're not real, that in itself is powerful enough to change them. You don't have to like, I mean, you can consciously like go out of your way to like change them, but even just seeing them, like being aware of them and just constantly reminding yourself like, no, that's not true, this is a distortion, like, that's enough to change it. I promise you. Like I said, it's a process. You can't just change it like that. I mean, your life has revolved around these things for a long time, and they've become part of your personality, which is what I'm going to get to next. It's why it's hard to like let them go, because they become like part of who you think you are, Anyway, so yeah, everyone has these, by the way. Like, most are unaware of this. It creates fragments in the energy. It splits the energy field up. Distortions go unnoticed. Angels tell me they linger in our energy fields, and we think that they are us. But no, we have taken them on and learned from others, and we aren't able to change what we can't see. They are disguised. This is where they get us, because they're disguised. They're disguised as like part of who we are. And yeah, we can't see them. They are disguised. We can't change what we can't see. They are camouflaged underneath the guise of our identities. So they're camouflaged underneath the guise of our identities. Interesting. So part of the simulation or unpaid act. So I watched this video from Kanye, and he was explaining how like we're in a simulation where everyone's unpaid actors, because we're taught from such a young age like that this means this and that means that, and this is right and this is wrong, and it's like a script. It's like a society script. Like, this is how things are. This is how what we all believe, and then we just get bombarded and conditioned with all of these like false beliefs, like delusions and cognitive distortions, which create thought loops, which feed themselves and manifest into the world in collectively and individually. So, and then they become part of who we are, because we think that that's who we are. So if you're always getting told you're wrong, you're bad, because you're not following the rules or the script in the simulation, then you're going to grow up thinking that you're bad. And then what's that going to do? That's going to create negative thought loops. That's going to create delusions and beliefs about yourself that aren't true. That's going to affect your life in a big way. That's going to affect what choices you make, what career you take, like the people that you love, the people that you choose to have in your life. Like, do you see how it all feeds into itself? And it's like an unpaid acting script. It's like we're all acting this script that no one knows who came up with. It's just there, and it's very, very damaging, especially on like a global scale. So we're all dealing with this right now. Yeah. So do you realize the possibilities that this opens up when you realize your distortions and your delusions? Like, anyone who's watching this video, like, do you actually realize like how many possibilities that this opens up for you? Like, just being aware that things aren't what you have believed them to be, and that your identity is not someone who believed negative things that aren't true. Your identity doesn't have to be connected to beliefs that you have like around like who you are or who you were when you were younger, you know. And these distortions, and like for example emotional reasoning, that's a distortion. Like that's not who you are. Like you don't need to just emotionally react and make choices out of your emotions. Like you can be rational. That's just something that's unfamiliar to you right now, and it will become familiar when you practice and when you are able to see that what you believed was part of you and your identity was actually a delusion that was disguising itself inside your identity and keeping itself alive by claiming that it's you, or your ego claiming that it's you. So that's an interesting point. But you see like how much possibility comes up when you're like, you know, you stop identifying with these false beliefs and these negative thought patterns that, you know, are destructive. Imagine like how much freer you will be when you're not believing all these beliefs and thinking all these thoughts that are like false. Because like, I mean, it's hurting you more than it's hurting anybody else. Like I know that for me to be true. Like, do you think I want to live like this? Like, no. I do not want my mental health to suffer just because I have these false beliefs and thought patterns that they give rise to. Like, no. I don't want that. The possibilities are endless when you stop identifying with these beliefs and you start to question what you're believing, and you question these thought patterns, and just being aware of them and just seeing them and seeing that they're not true. Like, that's powerful, very powerful. Do not underestimate that. So, this is the next bit. Disidentifying with distortions integrates and brings your energy fields back together, and replacing them with who you truly are, the truth, the God within, allowing God's source to fill the gaps, creates wholeness. So basically saying that when you disidentify with the distortions, it brings your energy fields back together, and then it replaces. So when you're like disidentifying them with them, then you've got the space to actually put something new in there. And what you could put that's new is like what God would see, or what God would say, you know, or the creator, or God's source, or a spirit, or whatever, or an angel, for example. Like, what would love say, or what would the greatest good say? What would the higher being say? You know, what would they believe about this? Like, you know, thinking about like say like everyone's obsessed with me, or everyone wants me, for example. What would God think about that? What would God want to believe about that instead? If I removed that belief, what would come in instead? You know, what could I put there instead? And I would choose to put something that God would think or believe, like thoughts of God. So let's see if one comes to mind. So instead of believing that everyone wants me, and that like that every guy has bad intentions, or, you know, selfish intentions, I'll believe instead, I'll take that out and put in people are attracted to me on an energetic level because I'm a healer, and they don't know why they stare at me, but they do sometimes, because some part of them is attracted to something that I have energetically that makes them stare at me. It doesn't mean that they want me. It doesn't mean they want to have sex with me. It doesn't mean that, you know, I don't need to assume that that's what's going on unless they say it to my face. Like, I don't, you know, the belief that I can have is that people are attracted to the healing qualities that I hold, and they just don't know what it is. So they think that it's a sexual thing, because sexual energy and healing energy are exactly the same in the higher realms. So speaking from that point of view, obviously they need healing, and I'm a healer, and that's why they're attracted to me. It's not because they want me. They don't know what they want. They're just attracted to the energy that I have. And that doesn't mean they have negative intentions with me. That doesn't mean that they're planning in their head what they're going to do to me. Like, that's not, no. Like, I don't need to believe that. So that's me doing that on camera for all of you, and hopefully that will stick. I think it will. It has before. Like, I never, like, it kind of went away and then came back, like this distortion that I had, this delusion, sorry. So that's the sort of thing that God would say to you? Like, if you were to ask God, like, what could I believe instead about this situation? What's a better alternative for me to believe, like, and act upon, you know? And now that I know that, I can be nice to men that stare at me. I can be nice to guys that smile at me rather than looking at them like they're gross and creepy. You know, I can be nice to them because they probably need my healing. They probably, well, I'm not going to give it to them just because they're staring at me, but like, they probably would really benefit from a smile from me, from a nice conversation with me. You know, they would probably really benefit from me not rejecting them. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That's something that really interesting. So anyway, next point. Yeah, so allow God or source or the higher power to fill in the gaps and increase wholeness within you. Like this will mend your energy field back together. This will make you so much more coherent overall. It makes you so much more powerful. You won't be like, you won't have holes everywhere. Like it will be like whole. You'll be whole. So yeah, we are unpaid actors playing out these parts that we think are our own, and we own them. Like we own them. We think they're ours. And we own the distortions and delusions that aren't ours. They are not ours, and they are certainly not who we truly are. They are just what we've been conditioned and told to be, you know? Just conditioning, really. So one identity, or like, I guess this is a delusion or a distortion that has become a part of my identity. Like I keep talking about identities. So this part of my identity has become the shy girl, or like the shy holding back girl, like the one that holds back, that doesn't do things. Like the natural response is to like hold back because of fear. So the holding back girl, or the timid girl, like the scared girl, you know, that identity has been around for the longest. I know it has. That's not me. That was fear. That was a fear response that I've done so many times, and fallen back on, and chosen so many times instead of the old, you know, the alternative. That has become, or I believe that it's become who I am, or that it is who I am, but it's not. Like, why would I be sitting here on camera if I'm shy? Like, that doesn't make, you know what I mean? Like, it's so limiting. Like, imagine if you went your whole life believing that you're a shy girl, like, and you just never took risks, like you never went out of your way, like you never went out of your comfort zone, like you never spoke to strangers. Like, imagine how much of a sheltered and like shitty life that would be. So I mean, I still do identify with the shy girl, like, but I'm aware of that now, and it's not. I know that it's not who I am, but I'm not going to force myself to like break it straight away. You know, I know it's a process, and I'm going to be gentle with myself because it is an inner child wound as well. I know that it's part of the fear that comes up, so it's not, you know, forcing it out is not going to help. Just allowing it to kind of fall away is the better option for me, anyway. So yeah, we innocently mistake our delusions and distortions as our own. Our own personalities, or even curses. You know, in the spiritual community, they talk a lot about curses, generational curses, and that's kind of what this talks about. It's like, yeah, everyone believes like, oh, this is a curse. This is a family trait. This is a generational. This is how my mum was. This is how I am. You know, like, we believe that it's part of who we are because it's part of our family and stuff, and that we can't really change it because we're like mistaking it. We're mistaking the delusions and distortions as our own, you know, as part of the build up of who we are, because we've had it for so long that we think it's part of our identity, and that's how they go unnoticed, and that's how they go unchanged. When they're actually just imbalances, you know, they're not us. They're not traits. Like, they become traits, but then like they're still, at the end of the day, like on an energetic level, they're still just distortions. Like, they're not us. They're not who we are, and they can be changed. They're not personality traits. They are not who we are. They are just distortions and imbalances. That's a big point that they wanted to make, that it is literally, it's just an imbalance. It's an imbalanced way of being. It's an imbalanced way of thinking. It's an imbalanced way of believing and behaving, you know, and that creates all kinds of shit in our lives that we don't really want, okay? So it's just an imbalance. If you want to look at it from the most simplest of ways, like it's just an imbalance. If you're a balanced person, if you're a balanced thinker, then you can think of both sides and you can choose what feels right to you. That's balance, you know. Being able to see both sides and discern, that's balance. Being able to question what you believe, until you've, really understood that, and, rather than just taking on what other people believe without question, it's always good to question what you believe and question what you're thinking and whether that's actually correct. Just because it sounds right, because it's something that you've always gone with, doesn't mean that it's right. Your brain loves what's familiar, and it really does not like what's unfamiliar. And that comes from back 1,000 years ago, when familiar was safe and unfamiliar was very unsafe and dangerous and potentially life-threatening. So our brains are primarily wired to go with what's familiar and to avoid what's unfamiliar. And these cognitive distortions and these delusions, these false beliefs and these thought patterns that are harmful, are familiar, but it doesn't mean that we can't make them unfamiliar and make new ones familiar. What I like to do is like not have beliefs about everything, not just be certain about everything, like rather than just being like black and white, like believing this or believing the opposite of that. Like you can be open, you can be flowing, you can be flexible, and you can just stay in the middle somewhere. And then when something happens, you can look at them both and you can decide in this scenario, in this moment, this now moment, I go with this or I go with this because this is what feels right or this is what feels right. Doesn't mean that you're choosing this one forever. Like it's not like this is how it is now and this is how it'll always be, because that's black and white thinking, and that's also a cognitive distortion. That's black and white thinking it's one way or it's the other way. And that's something we've learned through society is right and wrong. Like it has to be one or the other. You can't, there's no, but it's not both, but that's not true. If you know anything about the universe, like that both are true. The universe is one of those things where it's like both are true. Everything is true and nothing is true. So it's really good to be flexible with your beliefs and your thinking and have an open mind instead of just going with what you're used to, what's familiar. Perceiving something as what's familiar or thinking the same thoughts and going with the same kind of thought patterns just because it's what you're used to and it feels safe to you. That's just part of the human, like, that's just part of the mental, like, the mind conditioning, like, but we're, like, our minds naturally do that, so all we have to do is make it familiar to question our beliefs and to question our thought patterns and to not just keep on feeding them with our attention and keep on choosing them, because that doesn't really help anyone. So anyway, about that spiel. So I saw the angels, the angels showed me, I saw the distortions within everyone's aura. I only saw my aura, but they were like, this is everyone. So I could see that it was not just me. So it's like patches in the aura of like basically imbalances. So it's not bright. It's like there's patchy dark spots, and they're just imbalances, really. Like if you think about it, it'd be one over here, one down here, like one over there. Like it's not balanced. It's like imbalanced. So yeah, so you can see them in people's auras, and that it makes people susceptible to manipulation. That's like a big thing. It makes people it's susceptible to manipulation. So if you think of like the pandemic and like all of the fear mongering and all of the manipulation that's been happening, the deception that's been happening with like the government for years and years and years and years, the only reason why that works on the people is because of all these distortions and these delusions. It makes people super susceptible and vulnerable to manipulation and also negative attachments. So I don't know if you've ever known about like spiritual warfare, but there's the light and the dark, right? And like there's the good light and the bad light, and there's the good light, good dark, and the bad dark, or not good and bad, but you know what I mean, like positive and negative. But basically there are negative attachments that can be like negative energy that can be sent out and to find people with a match, and the match can be the distortion. So if you believe if you're really racist or something, then you have like some sort of a distortion that that people that are different color, race as you or whatever are bad or less than you or something. Like, then a negative, if there's a negative energy ball or an entity that's floating around looking for an energetic match to feed off of, right? It's going to find someone who like matches what the energy that it wants. So hatred would be a racist kind of like vibrationary spot. So then say there's a hole in the aura around the head, around the this energy field that's about like racism and hatred towards other races. Then this energy, right, if this energy is looking around, it's going to see a hole, and it's going to be like, oh, I can sit right there because like that's my vibrational match. So then negative energies and entities, like they're not usually that powerful, but like they can sit there in your aura and try and get closer and closer to you, and they can actually start to influence you as well. So that's part of being in here, like as part of being on this earth. There is light and dark, and there's free will. So it's just part of reality. That's why we need protection when we're spiritual. But when you, I mean, regular people don't know this, so they get affected by these energies all the time. So there could be a negative energy bubble, which is not a soul, it's just like a negative energy that's trying to get bigger and stronger. So it will sit in someone's aura, in the hole that they've created through the distortions, or through the distortions that society's given them, and they'll start to feed their energy into the person to try and make this distortion stronger so that they will become stronger. So that's how negative energy attachments work when you have distortions. So yeah, it's very easy for them to like feed off of you if you're unconscious about the distortions that you hold. But that's why like it's not, I mean, they can just like, the only way they feed off of it is by like trying to encourage more of it. So it's not like they're trying to like possess you or anything. It's just like they're trying to get stronger through feeding you with more negative energy and more bad thoughts and stuff, so that you'll act on them, and then you'll make them bigger and stronger. It's just about them. They're trying to make you to get your own distortion get bigger, so that they can feed off of that, and that they can get more stronger, because that's how negative energy works. Because it accumulates. It likes to accumulate together. Okay, so this is an ego trap. Like distortions and delusions, they are ego traps. Do not get stuck for too long believing that it's you. The longer you believe something, and the longer you reinforce it, and the longer that you continuously choose that, like you continuously choose to believe this about this, and you continuously see yourself or like the world through a certain lens without question, the longer you do that, the stronger it gets and the harder it is to kind of see beyond it. But then when you do see beyond it, it's like a shock, like a huge shock that you're almost like in denial about, because you just can't imagine thinking or believing anything different to what you've believed for so many years. Even for me, I'm only 22 and I still find it really hard. I've given rise to, because I'm such a mentally oriented person, like I've given rise to so many distortions that I don't even care to mention, and I don't even know half of what they are. But it's very important just to do some spring cleaning, and yeah, I would recommend just writing down distortions that you think that you might have. I've written a few down that I'm going to share with you. But yeah, just don't. It's just another ego trap, man. Like, it's just conditioning. It's just part of the human condition as it is right now, and we can't fight it from happening, but we can heal it within ourselves and not give it to our children. That's the biggest thing. If we can raise our kids to not have distorted views and perceptions about the world, then that is a massive win for humanity. Like, even one child that comes out of a parent who has worked on themselves and their own distortions and their own misperceptions and false beliefs about the world, like, that's a huge win, man. Like, that person will then affect the world in a very different way, and that they will not feed into the collective delusion and distortion bubble that's already been created, and that we were born into, that we were affected by. So they won't be affected by that, and they won't feed into it anymore either. So that's evolution happening slowly, each person by person. But do not underestimate the power of one person and their ability to change things on this planet, because it's more powerful than we can ever imagine, honestly. So yeah, don't get stuck for too long believing that it's you, because it's not you. Be brave enough to see the distorted lens your ego has you viewing life and yourself through. So imagine it's like a filter over your third eye or your eyes, and you're seeing through these like glasses that are like distorted as fuck, and you're seeing everything like, and it's just not how things really are. Like someone who hates humanity or hates society because they feel like an outcast, like they're gonna the way they see the world is pretty fucked up. Like not at all true, not the same as someone like Jesus who would have seen the world as love. So you think about it, like it's not it's just a lens that you're seeing yourself and the world through. Someone with body dysmorphia, for example, that's a filter that is very, very harmful, because you're seeing yourself in this lens, this distorted way that's completely so far from the truth. Anyone else on the street would not see you that way, but you're seeing yourself that way because you can't see any different, because it's so distorted. It tricks you. It's a trick. It's just an ego trick. It's not you. This is not you, and you can change it so easily. It's just about seeing it. It's not always easy, but just seeing it, becoming aware that things that you may believe aren't necessarily what they really are. It's always about discernment and questioning, and like I said before, about staying in the middle, not choosing one or the other, and not just going with one or the other. Like, it's not all black and white. So just allowing your own discernment in the moment to make choices in the moment about which lens you're going to look through and what suits the situation. And there's unlimited ways you can look at something. There are unlimited perspectives you can choose about a situation, but the point is that you have a choice. You have a choice. Like, this is not involuntary. Like, you do have a choice in what you want to, how you want to see the world. Like, it's okay to make that choice and to feel good about making that choice. Like, that's what all positive thinkers and successful people do. They make the choice. This is how I'm going to see things, and they go with that, and in the moment they go with, say, like a more positive approach, and then that builds up for them and it makes it good for them. So that's just one thing that will help you, just to like, yeah, know that you can sit in the middle and both are true in a way, but being aware of those distortions as well, like being aware of the lens that your ego might be placing over you, because that's not how it is. So discernment is a big one. Just like being mindful of and not judging so quickly. We can all do that. I can do that. I've done it in the last couple of days. It's been hard, but you can counteract these things. They're made to be broken. They're made to be transcended. That's part of the school. Like, it's part of Earth School. It's part of what we come here to do, is to transcend these things. Be brave enough to see the distorted lens that your ego has you viewing your life through and viewing yourself through. It's not you. So the common distortions from me, about me, are, every man wants me. That's one I spoke about. So everyone wants me, which is obviously not true. Danger around every corner. I'm not safe. So that's like that's a pretty distortion. Like, there's danger around every corner. Like, I need to be on guard. Like, that's hypervigilance, and that comes from trauma, obviously. But that's a distortion. Like, there's not trouble around every corner. Like, I don't need to be on guard all the time. Like, that's ridiculous. But yeah. The next one is, I know what people think. Like, I'm a mind reader. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what everyone's thinking at any given time. I can't judge that. Like, I can't possibly know what people are thinking. Like, yeah, I may be clairvoyant and I may be able to sense things and feel things about people, but I can't know exactly what they're thinking. And it's not actually it's not healthy to assume that you know what people are thinking. It's not healthy to be certain about someone and what they're thinking about you when it could be completely different to that. I've been wrong about that. I was wrong about that the other day, like what I shared with my example. There's so many ways that you could be incorrect with that. Like, you can't read people's minds. Like, that's not real. And that's not who I am. And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to assume what people are thinking, because it's usually negative. And even if it's positive, it takes out the fun of, like, finding out. Or it takes out the fun of just like not knowing, you know? Like, do we really need to know what people are thinking all the time? Like, is that something I really need in my life? Like, I don't think so. And I don't think I'd want to read people's minds. I think that would be very uncomfortable. And the last one, oh, there's another one. Everyone's jealous of me. It makes me feel very uncomfortable because I think every woman is jealous of me, and especially around men. Like any couples that I walk past, I just feel so uncomfortable. Like I think that the guy's looking at me, and then I assume the guy's looking at me, and I assume the girl's looking at the guy looking at me, and then hating me. Like that's what goes on in my head. That's a cognitive distortion that I have. That everyone's jealous of me, and that no one likes me because everyone's jealous of me because everyone wants me. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, and the last one is I'm always right. That's a big one. Oof. That, when you're in the world of certainty, you know that you have gone too far into the world of ego. Like, you are so gripped by the ego at that point when you believe that you're always right. That's a very dangerous place to be. Like, not like, I mean, yeah, it is dangerous because like you are completely closed-minded. You cannot see things for the way they are. You go with whatever your ego tells you, which can be really not good, especially if you've got distortions over here feeding you, you know, if you've got negative energies or whatever that are feeding you negative thoughts, and you're feeling, you know, you're feeling all these things that are being influenced by your mind. You know, your thoughts are creating your feelings, and then they're making it real because that's what you're feeling, but it's because of the distortion. And then because you think you're always right, you think all of this is real and that it's true. Like, oh my god, I went through that. Oh, it was the worst. It was the worst. I went through like a month of like being, I moved out by myself, and I was just alone all the time. I didn't have a job. I was like not working. I was not doing anything, and I just was eating, and I was like in my own head all day every day. And these distortions were just like ruining my life. Like, I could feel them like pulling me apart. Like, it was horrible. Like, I lost my mind. Like, my identity, I didn't know what was what anymore, because I realized, like, you know, I kind of lost this sense of like I'm always right. And but then my spiritual ego was just fully fucking with me, and like it was horrible. But that was all because of the distortions and me trying to make sense of everything, and me trying to decipher what I believed and what was right and what was wrong and what was real and what was not. Like, it was very difficult for me. It was like the worst couple of weeks, the hardest few weeks that I've ever been through. And I reckon there were energies around me that were loving that. Like, just me just completely having a mental breakdown, and just like every day. It was like an extended mental breakdown. Like, I completely lost my identity. It was fucked, but it was good. I needed it. So anyway, I think I'm just gonna leave it at that for now, because that's all I have in my notes, and I think this has been a pretty long video, so I don't want to keep you guys for too long. But yeah, I hope that you've learned something from this, and that it's helped someone in some way. I'm going to do some more videos about cognitive distortions, and just some of the common ones. There's 12 that I'm thinking of that I want to speak about. And yeah, just see, you know, what happens. And I'm going to do my own journey, and see how I go with disidentifying with these distortions and these delusions that I've been living my life through. So yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah, like I said, I hope that this helps someone. And yeah, have an awesome day.